International Rugby League has now concluded. I'm going to give you my 2025 review, which includes power rankings of the 8 nations that played in the Ashes and Pacific Championships. I'm going to give you my honourable mentions, one player from each team that I think deserves at least a mention in this video and how they performed. I'm going to go through my top 3 in each position, and I'll give you my, therefore, team of the season and player of the year as well, and my top 5 tries of the international season as well. So let's get started with the power rankings. In 8th place in my power rankings, and still in 8th from 2024, I have Cook Islands. Now, they only played 2 games, as did Fiji and Papua New Guinea, because they're in the Pacific Bowl. All those teams only played 2. They conceded 84 points in total across those 2 games. So defence was a major problem for the Cook Islands. It was very easy for Fiji and Papua New Guinea to march up the field. It was easy for the forwards, and it was still easy for the backs as well, early on in sets, to get out of trouble, to get out of danger. And that was a major issue. There were some positives to talk about. First of all, from 25 to 24, or 24 to 25, they conceded less points, and they've scored more. So there's progress. That's a good start. One thing that was noticeable is that they never really went away. So as much as, yes, they were constantly conceding tries throughout the game, they're also putting up points throughout games as well. So they never really went away. The scoreline was always kind of within a reasonable distance until, of course, like the last sort of 10 minutes of games, but they'd always be able to find a try here or there, or be able to put in a decent defensive stop on their own goal line. So there were some positive moments. I think the squad that they were able to announce was a lot stronger than it was last year. The biggest problem is that even though they could announce Marati Niokore and David Mwale, they didn't play a single game. And they would have been a huge help for the Cook Islands, especially through the middle. Brad Takirangi didn't play either. He was listed and didn't play. So it was up to Potoko, Masters and Cowley to play in the halves. But at least through the middle, I think they had a good go making meters themselves, but Mwale and Niokore would have been a huge help. But having Piakora in there and Kale Iro, they were huge. The major issue that they face compared to the rest of the nations is that they don't have as much NRL/Super League quality in multiple positions. At least for the World Cup next year, if they can have their best available heritage players, there is the chance that they start to close the gap to Fiji and Papua New Guinea. But for me, Cook Islands were the weakest team, and they will be in 8th. In 7th place in the power rankings, and still in 7th from 2024, I have Fiji. Now, one thing I was really happy with last year was the pace that they tried to play with. They didn't have the best looking spine going into it, but they definitely played with an incredible amount of pace. Didn't always work out, but one thing I was looking forward to going into this campaign was the improved quality and experience in the spine. First of all, I think it was Taruva that started at 1 last year. It might have been Bula, I can't fully remember, but from 2024 to 25, at least Bula was starting at fullback. Kurt Donahue was starting at 6, and he was in the halves last year, but Kurt Donahue came into this campaign with a lot more NRL experience, mostly playing at 13 for the Dolphins, but a hell of a lot more NRL experience, so the game might have slowed down for him a bit more, and he could have learned a lot more from those experiences. And then, instead of Kevin Nagama joining him in the halves, it's Brandon Wakeham. Major difference. Better ends of sets, more organisation, and just a lot more cleaner moving the ball around in attacking structure. You could tell it was a lot cleaner. Now in game 1, Fiji was really energetic. Ends of sets were more organised, there was more cohesion, better execution moving the ball around. The problem is for game 2 against Papua New Guinea, we didn't really get the chance to see that much because some of the passes were wayward, but there was a lot of really simple mistakes, just dropping the ball constantly, so we couldn't really see Fiji in a lot of good attacking positions. I think they really could have made that a competitive game against Papua New Guinea, but they didn't because they gave away possession so often, and they let them just march up the field as well. Defensively, they were shocking. So the first game, they looked like a different side, an improved side, and in terms of expectations, they matched what I was expecting from them, but in the second game, they just didn't show up. Too many errors, defensively poor as well. I do think for the World Cup, they'll at least have Viliami Kikau to make that team stronger, but with Bula getting more experience in the NRL, Kurt Donahue getting more experience as well, hopefully, but we'll have to see with Morgan Knowles joining the Dolphins whether Donahue will get much time at 13. And then, of course, Brandon Wakeham, as long as, he's still getting regular game time somewhere, even if it's in the Queensland or New South Wales Cup, then they've at least got a decent spine. Taylor 2 games, unfortunately, for Fiji, but they will stay where they are in 7th. In 6th place in my power rankings, and still in 6th from 2024, I have Papua New Guinea. Now, in game 1, their attack was fine. It was okay. It was easy enough to find points due to the fact that if you look at the squad comparison between Papua New Guinea and Cook Islands, there's a major difference in quality and speed and experience. A major difference. So it was easy enough in patches throughout the first game to find the points. The problem is on a lot of occasions, there was a real lack of cohesion. Execution was well off as well. And defensively, there was a lot of lapses. A lot of players just switching off here and there, and they just allowed Cook Islands to kind of stay in the game a little bit too long. They should have really shut them out. For game 2 though, which would have been the tougher game, where I thought it would be, I just, in my predictions video, just gave them the win by about 4 points. They were so much cleaner in possession. Execution was a lot better. Defense was so much more reliable as well. Like defending inside the red zone, they looked a lot more sure of themselves. And they made so many meters in a lot of sets. Even when starting right in front of their own try line, they were able to finish sets at the halfway line or even in opposition territory multiple times. And they really put pressure onto Fiji throughout the game. Defense overall, though, does need to be better. I do think their attack is good enough to, in some games for the World Cup, they need to execute a little bit better in order to hit the next kind of group of teams. So we're looking at probably France is the next group that they could start to push maybe, but defense needs major work if they want to compete at a higher level. I do think the only thing that they'll need going forwards is if the Pacific Championships does start to have that promotion and relegation game again. So they would likely keep winning the Pacific Bowl and they'll get tougher games on a regular basis. That would help them going forwards. But for me, Papua New Guinea, better than Cook Islands and Fiji, but not at that next level yet, and they will stay in 6th. In 5th place in my power rankings, and moving down 2 from last year, I have Tonga. I didn't see any redeeming qualities in either of their performances, aside from a few individuals that deserve some praise. There's good moments from them, but as a unit, my God, it was awful. They conceded 74 points in 2 games. 74 points. And scored 20. They had 3 tries. The first try that they scored in the campaign was against Samoa with a minute to go, after they'd already conceded 34 points. The second try they scored was against New Zealand. New Zealand had a sin bin at the time, and the third try they scored against New Zealand was with 5 minutes to go. That's it. That's the points that they put up. And defensively, again, conceding 74 points is unacceptable for that team list that they announced. It was really easy for both New Zealand and Samoa to get up the field. There was a lot of energy from both New Zealand and Samoa. The backs could get out of trouble very easily, and then at the end of sets, the forwards would join in and just get them even further up the field, and then Tonga could get pinned back. They were not ready for the dogfight through the middle. And if you told me before the Pacific Championships, looking at the squad that Tonga announced, that Tonga was not going to be prepared and was not going to be equipped to compete with New Zealand and Samoa's forward pack, I would have said, you are talking shit. But it turns out you would have been right. They were not ready for it at all. And by the way, they had 18 errors in each game. Not in one game or the other, in each game. 71% completion in game 1. That plummeted to 62% completion in game 2. Now, the only thing I can think of as a positive for next year is that they've got a strong squad anyway. You'd assume it wouldn't be as bad in the World Cup next year as it was this year. There's a lot of young players. Like, you look at that spine, for example. Lehigh Hapuate at 1. He's going to get a lot more experience this year for the Sea Eagles. Isaiah Iongi at 6. Normally plays at fullback for the Eels, so he's not normally a 6, but will get a lot more NRL experience this year, or next year for the Eels. And then Isaiah Katoa. I thought he would have been a lot more better in terms of, or a lot better in terms of controlling things for Tonga. It wasn't his best campaign, but he had a great 2025 campaign for the Dolphins. Hopefully he can improve it even more in 2026 for the Dolphins, then with a more experienced spine overall. Young players, really exciting, really quick and skillful, they can produce much better performances in the World Cup. There's definitely positives because of the squad that they can produce for next year, and they've got a good head coach in Christian Wolf, but they were not good in the Pacific Championships, and they will move down 2 into 5th. In 4th place in my power rankings and moving down 2 from 2024, I have England. They were another disappointing side this year, unfortunately. Now, the difference to Tonga is that England at least stayed in each game by half-time. So once we got to half-time, they were still in the game, whereas Tonga were nowhere near. England was able to get themselves in dangerous attacking positions on plenty of occasions, not so much in the first half of the first game, but in the second half of game 1, so many times in game 2, and especially in game 3, there were so many play the balls inside the red zone. England were able to get up the field. Sometimes it was due to penalties or errors from Australia, but England still earned a lot of that territory, which was a good sign, but it resulted in one try from play the balls inside the 20. Just one, and that was from Darryl Clark with 3 or 4 minutes to go at the end of game 1. But defensively, I think there were a lot of really impressive defensive efforts. Some individual efforts and some team efforts, but that came with a lot of really poor efforts as well and lapses in concentration. Some of those tries that Australia scored were just too easy. The try that Crichton scored in the first game, It was an easy line break, really easy, and then Wellesby just doesn't have a clue where he is. It doesn't look great. It's not great showing at all. There were a lot of close moments with the ball, a lot of half chances. Most of them were off the back of George Williams. He's been getting a lot of shit. I think with George Williams in particular, you look at most of the halfbacks from the international games this year, like the worst has been here, the best has been here. But for George Williams, his worst has been here and best has been here. There's been a lot of good stuff from Williams. He's been involved in the best chances that England's had, but also had some of the worst moments as well. It's been a bit of a weird campaign for him, but too many errors. First of all, that needs to be cleaned up. Too predictable in front of goal. Execution was poor at times as well. Worse attack than Tonga technically, but the defence was so much better than Tonga. Competed through the middle fairly well. And even Cameron Munster admitted to Sean Wayne that England were the better side in game 2. Definitely better than the teams below, but miles off the top 3 from this year. So England moved down 2 into 4th. In 3rd place in my power rankings, I'm moving up 2 this year. I have Samoa. They were massively improved from 24 to 25, and a major reason for that was, of course, having a better squad. They weren't able to bring their best squad over to England because a lot of their best players had other commitments, but they had a much stronger squad for the Pacific Championships this year, and you could really tell. Now, they had some of the same issues from 24 to 25, that being they were a bit too erratic at times, end of sets were all over the place sometimes, but the positive is, the further on they got into the campaign, the better they got as well. So the opening half against New Zealand was a bit too erratic. That got cleaner towards the back end of the game. In game 2 against Tonga, they were really professional, really clean. And when they needed to throw the ball around, they did. This is one thing about Samoa's style, which I really like, is that they're willing to be chaotic. They're willing to throw the ball around. Last year, it felt like they were doing it for the sake of doing it. They were just panicking. They were just rushing at times. This year, they tried to establish an actual foothold in games, completing sets, kicking to corners, and having some defensive discipline off the back of it. So building that territory, and then when they're in good attacking positions, then maybe start to throw the ball around a bit. But their attacking execution got better as the campaign went on as well. One thing that helped massively with having a process is that Jerome Luai went into the 2-match series against England last year having played a little bit at 7 for the Panthers. This year, he's played a whole season at 7 for the Tigers, and he'll have another year at 7 for the Tigers as well going into the World Cup. So that'll be a huge help. And then having Blaise Talangi at 6 was huge for their attacking threat down the right edge. Not just Luai doing everything, because he was like their best attacking threat against England, but Blaise Talangi down the right was a major asset. Now, they conceded 22 points per game as an average. Now, it was only 6 against Tonga, but there's a fair bit more against New Zealand. I think if they can just bring that average down a little bit, not concede as many points, you could clearly see they were staying in games, they could just improve defensively a little bit. There's a chance they win the World Cup next year, but I think it's just defence. They're in games for a lot of it, and then they'll just kind of drop off in periods of games. If they can stay in for a full 80, like they did against Tonga, then I think there's a chance they win the World Cup next year, and they'll have a stronger side. Very impressive overall. I'm glad that they look so competitive. All around, a more competent side with more quality to bring in as well. They'll have Hamaso Tabo-Fidel playing for them next year, and Stephen Crichton didn't even play in this campaign, and he'll be there next year as well. Hopefully, Payne Haas actually sticks around as well, and he can play. But yeah, Samoa, very impressive. They move up 2 into 3rd. In 2nd place in my power rankings, and moving down 1 this year, I have Australia. Now, they weren't the most exciting team in possession, but I suppose they didn't need to be, first of all. Individuals did create a lot of opportunities when things were looking a bit stale at times offensively for Australia. It would be some individuals that came up with something, whether it be Munster or Crichton or Walsh. They'd come up with a moment here or there. Even when England were very solid defensively, an individual would create a spark from somewhere. But the most impressive thing from Australia was their defence, which was elite. They conceded 18 points all series, and a lot of that was just penalties. So yeah, just clean up the penalties, lads. Sort that out and you'll be all right. If you think about the amount of defensive work they had to do on their own goal line, now you can use whatever words you want to describe England's attack. Dull, slow, flat, predictable, boring, whatever words you want to use. If you just think of the amount of play the balls that England had in front of the try line, just consider that aside from Darryl Clark's try at the end of the first game, the amount of territory that England had, and Australia didn't concede one simple throwaway try. A simple walk-in, so like shifting the ball across, halfback pops the ball up to a lead runner, and they just sort of waltz in. Or you'll see multiple times during Super League in the NRL, basic block shapes, ends up in the hands of the winger because somebody's jammed in when they shouldn't, or there's, miscommunication. And at some point, even when there's a mismatch in terms of teams in Super League and the NRL, the underdog will at least come up with some points. They'll find a way to get some points. But the fact that there was none of those easy walk-in tries, with the amount of territory that they had, just goes to show how elite Australia's defence was. There was no simple tries, which was really impressive from them. It was really frustrating to watch from my side, but they were elite defensively. The problem that they had, I think, most often was just the penalties and errors, because if you start giving other teams with better attacks more territory inside the red zone, you are eventually going to start conceding more points. That's the only issue I had with Australia, is that they just gave away the ball in decent territory far too often and gave away too many penalties. That's it. They clean that up, they'll have zero concerns. And what I really actually appreciate about Kevin Walters is that he stuck with the same team, his best team, for Game 3 as well, because they took it seriously. I wanted to see Australia bring their best, and they did, and now we know the gap. Australia were elite defensively. The only thing that knocks them down is a team does have to move up to first, which I'll get onto, but Australia will move down one into second. In first place, in my 2025 International Power Rankings, moving up 3 places this year, I have New Zealand. They were easily the best international side. Easily. Solid defence, great carries, reliable kicking, very creative. That was in all 3 games as well. My only complaint, just to get those out of the way, Game 1, they let momentum shift a little bit too quickly. They had a 12-0 lead, they let that go, lost a bit of a foothold in the first game, and in the final against Samoa, they didn't convert some opportunities in the first half. That's it. They're my only complaints. Their forwards were outstanding. Every single one of them was fantastic in all 3 games. No passengers at all. All the backs were reliable on both sides of the ball, in defence and attack. They had to make a slight adjustment with them losing out on Ronaldo Militalo for Game 2, so it meant that Casey McLean went from centres to wing, Nico Cluckstyle went from full-back to centre, and then Keanu Kinney came in. So it's only a slight adjustment, but they handled that brilliantly. They didn't look phased by any of the occasions or high-pressure situations. When it was getting tough towards the back end of Game 1 against Samoa, they didn't look phased at all. At the start of the game against Tonga, not phased at all. And in the final, when they had a 14-0, I think it was 14-0 deficit at half-time, didn't look phased at all either. They absolutely nailed it. And I think if the World Cup was on now, based on performances from all teams, I am 95% confident that New Zealand wins it. With that kind of performance, everything about how New Zealand played was perfect. Defence was extremely reliable. The carries were unbelievable. So many effective ball runners, constant post-contact meters, quick play the balls, offloads from so many different individuals. And one issue I had last year was that even though Sean Johnson came in kind of late, a lot of it was kind of basic, a lot of the same stuff. Down the right-hand side would be Sean Johnson, just kicking on the last tackle inside midfield, not taking enough risks, shifting down the left-hand side. They had nothing going for them down the left. Everything was down the right with, I think it was Papali'i, Hiku, and Isako was their right edge last year, and Johnson as well. But this year, so much more creative, so much more flair. The forwards were good last year, but they were even better this year, in my opinion. So yeah, New Zealand, all round, excellent. Easily first place. So yeah, they will be first place in my power rankings. Just to quickly go through my honourable mentions for each team, the people on this list have not made my international team of the season or have been listed in the top 3. Starting with Australia, my honourable mention is going to be Mark Nawaqanitawase. He didn't have that many flashy stats for a winger with all the tries and assists, but what he did have was a couple line breaks, he had plenty of metres per game, and there was a lot of kicks offensively that he got up for really nicely, and a lot of kicks defensively that he dealt with very well in the corners. So he's my honourable mention for Australia. For the Cook Islands, I'm going to go with Paul Ulberg. He actually had the most metres and post-contact metres for the Cook Islands across both games. His carries out the backfield were very impressive. Again, he's another winger that didn't have all the flashy stats that wingers often like in tries and assists, but he massively helped the Cook Islands to get out of danger and away from their own try line when he was carrying the ball early on in sets. For England, I'm going to go with Tom Johnston. Again, another winger that didn't have all the flashy stats, but had a lot of kicks going his way that he dealt with fairly well for the most part. He also had 121 metres per game, 40 average post-contact metres, and 20 tackle breaks. Of all the players I looked at across all international games, 20 tackle breaks is right up there. So pretty impressive from him, and he gets my honourable mention for England. For Fiji, I'm going to go with Semi Valemei. Unfortunately, there's nobody that really stood out massively from Fiji. Maybe Bula, who got 4 tries in the first game, but wasn't really much to show for it in the second game. For Semi Valemei, across both, he had 1 try, 137 metres per game, 62 average post-contact metres, a line break, and 4 tackle breaks. Again, there's not that many to sing and dance about for Fiji, but I'll just give it to Semi Valemei. For New Zealand, I'm going to go with Nickel-Cluckster. Now, he looked really uncomfortable in Game 1, I have to admit. Looked like he didn't want to be there, to be honest, against Samoa. But for Game 2 and Game 3, there was a little bit of a change in the back line for New Zealand, so he had to move to centre. He looked really competent, defended well, and made solid yards. It was a great turnaround from him, and he helped massively to create a lot of chances for the Kiwis. For Papua New Guinea, I'm going to go with Nixon Putt. He was very close to being in my top 3 for back rowers. Very, very close. Every carry felt effective from him. It felt like he was always making progress. In Game 1, he made 32 tackles with an efficiency of 96.97%. And in Game 2, he had the most metres and post-contact metres of all PNG players. For Samoa, I'm going to go with Isaac Tango. Now, he had 1 try, 119 metres per game, 3 line breaks, 4 line break assists, and 11 tackle breaks. He very nearly made it into my top 3 at centre. I do think he went under the radar a little bit. I don't recall commentators or analysts talking about him or referencing him that much. I could be wrong on that one, but I think he went under the radar slightly, putting some really impressive attacking performances actually for Samoa. And if it wasn't for a couple close moments that Talangi had in the back right corner for Samoa in Game 2 and Game 3 especially, Isaac Tango could have had a few more assists on that tally as well, so he definitely gets an honourable mention from me. Finally, for Tonga, I'm going to go with Isaiah Iongi. Now, he did have a major drop ball in Game 1. It wasn't a great moment. He should have scored. Simple as that. He'd love that moment back. But for a player that doesn't have that much experience in general, or even experience as a number 6, I don't think he did too bad. He had a try assist and line break assist in both games. He actually made 31 tackles in Game 1, which was second best for Tonga, and 29 tackles in Game 2, which was fourth best for Tonga as well. So for a player that's not that experienced in general or at number 6, not too bad to have a try assist and line break assist in each game. And for defensive work, for a back, 31 tackles and 29 tackles is pretty decent. So it's time to move on to my international team of the season. I'm going to go through my top 3 in each position. And the way this is going to work is, if it's a position with just one player, like fullback, 5/8, halfback, hooker, and lock, first place will be in my team of the season. If it's a position with 2 players, like centre, prop, second row, it's the top 2 that make the team of the season. And I'll go through a bench as well. So for my top 3 fullbacks, in third place, I'm going to go with Keanu Kinney. He had 1 try, 212 metres per game, 3 line break assists, and 14 tackle breaks. He turned New Zealand's attack from good to great, in my opinion. Second place, very nearly first place, very, very nearly, was Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. 1 assist, 230 metres per game, 14 tackle breaks, 73 average post-contact metres, 6 offloads, and at the very least 2 major goal line stops versus New Zealand in the final. If anyone has him in their team of the season, I'd have no problems with that whatsoever. But my international fullback of the year is going to be Reece Walsh. He had 4 tries, 153 metres per game, 4 line breaks, 13 tackle breaks, and at the very least 2 major stops in Game 1 as well. Again, Australia weren't the most creative or enjoyable attacking side to watch, but a lot of incredible moments came from Reece Walsh and he elevated them. When Australia just needed something from somewhere, Reece Walsh was typically involved and he was always usually quite reliable under the high ball as well. So my international fullback of the year is Reece Walsh. For my top 3 international wingers, third place also feels like an honourable mention. I don't think I could put Ulberg or Nwangini Tuaze at third place. This third place for me is, again, just an honourable mention. I'm going to go with Brian Toto. He had 1 try, 152 metres per game, a line break, 14 tackle breaks, and an average of 55 post-contact metres. Wasn't flashy, but had a lot of work to do out the backfield early on in sets, and did it well with 55 average post-contact metres. Second place is very easy for me to pick. That's going to be Moe Talangi. 2 tries, 161 metres per game, 5 line breaks, a line break assist and 8 tackle breaks. Came incredibly close to scoring at least 3 more tries in this campaign in very tight situations as well. Very, very tight situations. Carried well, put in a lot of hard work at the backfield. But first place, my international winger of the year is Casey McLean. Very easy pick. 4 tries, 2 assists, 153 metres per game, 7 line breaks, 18 tackle breaks. Now the assists in there as well will be because he's also played centre, but he has played on the wing for 2 games, so he does count. He played both centre and the wing, looked very dangerous on the ground and in the air as well. He's a great aerial threat. I've seen that a lot this year for the Panthers in the NRL, and one of the easiest picks of this entire video, one of the absolute easiest ones. Looked very impressive in most tries he scored and was involved in. He just kept popping up, kept producing great moments. That try he scored against Samoa, I can't remember if it was his first or second, or the first or second of the game. Strong carry from 10 metres out and manages to find the line. He's got that in his game as well. He's a really impressive young player and he could really go far in the NRL. He really, really could. But yeah, International Wing of the Year is Casey McLean. So for my top 3 international centres of 2025, third place is going to be Ruben Rennie. He had 2 tries, 135 metres per game, 2 line breaks and 12 tackle breaks. In one of the games, he made 25 tackles and missed just 1, so solid defensive work there. And he was a major reason why Cook Islands was actually able to stay in games. I mentioned earlier about Cook Islands just kind of staying within reach of teams, being able to just be a thorn in team sides. He was one of the major reasons for that. His carries were really strong. He looked like a real threat inside the red zone as well. A lot of great meters, plenty of tackle breaks, making players miss. I think he was really solid. Just going to take him over Isaac Tango because of the team that he was in and how effective he looked in that environment. But second place, very easily, is going to be Dean Mariner. 1 try, 117 metres per game, 4 line breaks, 17 tackle breaks. He always looked dangerous with the ball in hand, and his carries early on in sets when Samoa were inside their own territory, pinned in front of their own try line, were always really effective. They could have easily been pinned back on a lot of occasions if it wasn't for Dean Mariner pushing them further up the field. And inside the red zone, a couple great moments and looked really dangerous from 10 metres out. But first place is going to be Matthew Timoko. 2 tries, 175 metres per game, 72 average post-contact metres, a line break, 2 line break assists, and 16 tackle breaks. He was always a handful. He never made it easy for defenders to bring him down. And in positions where it seemed like nothing was on, it's the same with the Raiders as well. You just give him the ball, just a little shimmy, just a bit of footwork, bit of fancy footwork, and he's creating problems. Doesn't always result in a try, but he's creating problems. He's putting defenders on the back foot, and he did that constantly. So for me, Matthew Timoko is my international centre of the year. So for my top 3 5/8 of the year, third place is Cameron Munster. He had 1 try, 4 assists, 119 metres per game, a line break, 4 line break assists, and 11 tackle breaks. Again, offensively, Australia didn't look that exciting to watch, but there's a couple guys here and there that needed to create a spark or provide a spark, and one of them was Cameron Munster, so he'll be third place for me. Second place is Blaise Talangi. He had 22 points in the campaign with a conversion rate of 90.47%. The only conversion he missed were 2 near the touchline. That's it. He had 2 assists as well and 3 line break assists. Tackle efficiency wasn't great, I'll admit, but he did make an average of 26 tackles per game, which is a lot for a number 6. And he looked really calm and composed in possession and led Samoa's right edge attack really well. If you look at a lot of the tries or try scoring opportunities for Samoa down that right edge, where Blaise Talangi is involved, he could have looked rushed. He could have been rushed in a lot of situations, but looked so cool, calm and collected, whether it be bullet passes out the back, the execution, the timing, the accuracy, everything. He just looked really, really calm, really clean, and did it at a high level with a lot of pace as well. So he's second for me. But my international 5/8 / standoff of the year is the easiest pick of this entire video. That is Dylan Brown. He had 3 tries, 7 assists, 160 metres per game, 57 average post-contact metres, 2 line breaks, 5 line break assists, 19 tackle breaks, 9 offloads, and a partridge in a pear tree. Every time he touched the ball, I had trust in him. Complete and utter trust. When his game needed to be simple, he kept it simple. When he saw an opportunity, more often than not, it turned into a positive play. He would instigate opportunities, create opportunities, feed off what others gave him. He was just involved in everything, it felt like. Everything good for New Zealand felt like Dylan Brown was involved in some way. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like for him for New Zealand, because whenever Jerome Hughes hasn't been there, he's kind of gone missing. And with all the pressure that's going to be on him going into the NRL season next year for the Knights, being on the money that he's on, to set a statement like that, I think is really good. And I'm very impressed with him, because I have been critical of him, but he was extremely impressive. So he is my number 1 5/8 / standoff of the year. So for my top 3 international halfbacks of the season, again, this is another position that I wasn't that impressed with a lot of the options. First and second place are very obvious for me. So again, third place is a bit of an honourable mention. Third place is going to be Lachlan Lamb. He had 3 assists in the campaign. And that's about it. Still contributed to 3 tries. I thought he was fine. Made PNG look a lot quicker when he was on. I think he started from the bench actually in game 2. When he came on, the execution was a little bit cleaner. The kicking was a little bit more accurate and better placing in towards the corners so that they could start to pin back Fiji and Cook Islands a little bit more. Wasn't particularly flashy from that many halfbacks. Second place is going to be Kieran Foran. He had 391 kicking metres per game and 2 forced dropouts. He was solid, comfortable, reliable, competent, kept everything completely under control. His kicking was decent as well, and was just very calm and composed, as you'd expect from a veteran with so many years of experience under him. First place for me, though, is going to be Jerome Luai. He had 2 assists, a line break assist, 5 tackle breaks, 440 kicking metres per game, and 2 forced dropouts, as well as Kieran Foran. In the first half, in the first game for Samoa, my biggest issue with Luai, and it was an issue that persisted last year for Samoa as well, a couple times, he'd want to receive the ball down the short side left, because he normally plays down the left-hand side, and then just for the sake of it, on the last tackle, by the way, is just throw it to the right, thinking, oh, let's get the defensive line out of shape, which could work a couple times, and sometimes it worked in Samoa's favour, but I think early on he didn't focus enough on just sticking with a process for Samoa, getting the ball into the corners. But when he started doing that earlier on in game 2 and in the final, we saw that Samoa could start to build some pressure, build some territory. And then when he started wanting to throw the ball left and right and instigate those off-the-cuff moments, Samoa was able to create some great opportunities. Further on into the campaign, he just got better and better and better. His kicking was improved as the campaign went on. His organisation was improved, just made better decisions as time went on as well. And one thing that's going to be huge for him, he's going to get more experience as a 7 for the Tigers next year in the NRL, and he's going to learn more about organisation and improve his kicking game as well, and bring that into the World Cup next year. Again, I wasn't blown away by the options at 7 this year. I think Luai was definitely the better in terms of the run threat and the kicking and organisation, composure, instigating opportunities. He was the best halfback, in my opinion. So for my top 3 international props of 2025, third place is Payne Haas. Huge expectations on him for this year, finally putting on the Samoa jersey, but had 8.74 metres per carry, 48 average post-contact metres, 18 tackle breaks, 39 tackles per game, and a tackle efficiency of 92.79%, 1 line break and 1 try as well. Samoa can always name a big forward pack, but I think he helped to elevate that forward pack to another level, so he's third for me. Second, bit of a technicality, because this guy's normally a lock, but came off the bench in each game, and his duties required him to play as a front rower, and that's Erin Clark. 9.91 metres per carry, 50 average post-contact metres, 18 tackle breaks, 1 try, 1 assist, 1 line break, and 2 line break assists. Didn't make that many tackles compared to a lot of other props that I looked at, but had a tackle efficiency of 94.74%, which was the highest of all the props that I looked at. So he's second for me. First place, though, and let me just put this into context, by the way, for first place. I looked at Lees, McMeekan, Walmsley, Carrigan, Fasu Malawi, Collins, Cotter, Kalamatangi, Fisher Harris, Leota, Clark, Willison, Haas, and Fanua Blake. And one other who I'll save for later. But I looked at all those props and all their stats. And first place, out of all those, is Nafahu White. 11 metres per carry, first out of all those. 73 average post-contact metres, first out of all those. 18 tackle breaks, tied first with Erin Clark and Payne Haas. Only prop on this list to rank first in 3 different areas that I looked at, which was metres per carry, post-contact metres, tackle breaks, tackles, tackle efficiency, offloads, play the ball speed as well. I looked at all the ranks for each of those players, all the average ranks amongst all of them in all those areas, and the guy with the best average rank was Nafahu White, and again led in metres per carry, average post-contact metres, and tied first for tackle breaks as well. 1 try as well and 3 line breaks. He was an absolute tank. 11 metres per carry. Every single carry felt incredibly effective. So difficult to stop, so difficult to slow down. Plenty of quick play the balls as well. He was unbelievable. Easily the best prop internationally. You know, some of the usuals that we'll see getting great stats were still good, but now Fahu White was on a different level. So he is my international prop of 2025. So for my top 3 international hookers of 2025, I wasn't that impressed with a lot, to be honest. There's only 2 that I was impressed with, and they're first and second. Like, they're easily first and second. Third place is a bit of an honourable mention, but it's going to be Jez Litton. He had 1 assist, 1 line break, 5 tackle breaks, 29 tackles per game as well, and was involved in a few positive moments that England actually had. Game 1, he had that 40-20 to help give England much needed territory further up the field, and there was a great kick that he put in towards the back left for Reece Walsh to collect. Nearly pinned him in the corners if it wasn't for a great line break that he ended up getting, and then getting himself into England's half. What are you going to do about it, eh? But in game 3, had a line break and assist, and got through a lot of defensive work. So for me, Jez Litton is third. Second place was very nearly first. I'll go through the reasons, or I'll specify the reasons why I chose the first place that I went with in the end. Second place is Edwin Apape. Very nearly picked him first. He had 1 try, 1 assist, 3 line breaks, 4 line break assists, 14.7 metres per carry, 9 tackle breaks, 11.1 metres per dummy half run, and 4 offloads. He was dominant in both games. He was an absolute tank. He put in so many massive hits on the Cook Islands and Fiji forwards. He was a brick wall. He also averaged 110 metres per game, and he had 2 forced dropouts as well. Ipape was excellent, absolutely excellent. But first place, my international hooker of the year, is Harry Grant. A lot of you probably saw that coming. So he had 1 try, 2 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 7 tackle breaks, 6 offloads as well. There were so many individual moments where he got Australia on the front foot. In game 3 especially, it just felt like he was everywhere, making big plays, coming up with moments throughout the game to swing momentum. I really wanted to pick Ipape at first, but the reason why I've gone with Harry Grant is, first of all, Ipape, he made 19 tackles per game. His tackle efficiency was only 77.97%. He missed 8 tackles in game 1 as well. But for Harry Grant, he played all 240 minutes that were possible and had 38 tackles per game with 87% tackle efficiency. 38 tackles per game. He played 80 minutes in all 3 games and just showed up massively in so many moments all throughout, never looked tired, got through so much defensive work and was constantly effective with carries from the ruck. And that's mainly why he gets the nod at number 1. He didn't look as dominant as Ipape did, but my God, does he get through a lot of work. How he manages to do 80 minutes week in, week out, even in the NRL as well, is unbelievable. But yeah, international hooker of the year is Harry Grant. Now for my top 3 international second rowers of the year. Again, I wasn't that impressed with many. There was only 4 that I was impressed with, and 4th place before was Nixon Putt. That's why he's an honourable mention for PNG. Now 3rd place is going to be Kitione Kautoga. He had 3 tries. And game 1, he had the most opposed contact meters with 53. He had 1 line break and 6 tackle breaks as well over the course of the 2 games. He looked really dangerous every time he had the ball inside the red zone. Could look like scoring even more tries as well. He was one of the biggest threats for Fiji. They didn't have a great campaign, but yeah, Kautoga always looked really solid. 2nd place is Angus Crichton. 2 tries, 129 metres per game, 2 line breaks, 18 tackle breaks, 31 tackles per game. Typical for Crichton, really getting involved on both sides of the ball. Really, really solid all round. But first place for me is Reece Martin. 2 tries, 13 out of 14 conversions, scored 26 total points, 2 line breaks, 10 tackle breaks, and 32 tackles per game. You could tell that he was getting stuck in defensively. There was so much hard work that he was getting through, and he had a lot of strong carries in possession as well. I think we saw a lot this year for Hull Kingston Rovers that his sort of role as a back rower changed a little bit. It was less about the technical side of it and less about the flair that he could provide and more about just getting stuck in, providing those carries, and he brought that to PNG. A little bit of both, but he brought a lot of strong carries to PNG as well. So he is my international second rower of the year. So finally, for my top 3 international locks / loose forwards for this year, 3rd place is Ruben Cotter. To put what he did into perspective, comparing him to Carrigan, Farsumalawi, Collins and Kalamatangi, he ranked 1st in metres per carry, average post-contact metres, play the ball speed, tackles per game and tackle efficiency. So in all those areas that you'd want covered from a lock / loose forward, Cotter leads Carrigan, Farsumalawi, Collins and Kalamatangi in all of those areas. He's not tied in anything. He's not just 2nd or 3rd. He's 1st compared to the rest of his forwards or forward teammates at Australia. He's 1st. So for me, he goes 3rd. 2nd place is Junior Barlow. 8 metres per carry, 1 assist, 1 line break assist, 6 tackle breaks, 7 offloads, 36 tackles per game. When Samoa were moving the ball across the field, he always kept it incredibly clean. He looked really threatening inside the red zone as well and put in plenty of big hits. He was fantastic, consistently brilliant throughout all games for Samoa. But 1st place, by a country mile, one of the easiest picks, it's Joseph Tarpany. 10 metres per carry, 148 metres per game, 59 average post-contact metres, 1 line break, 9 tackle breaks, average play the ball speed of 2.93 seconds, 13 offloads, 26 tackles and a tackle efficiency of 90.56%. Whenever he was on, I just knew that New Zealand would be fine. I just knew they'd be fine. He was so dominant with his carries and defensive work. In the final, he came on just after New Zealand took the lead for the first time, and from that point on, I had no concerns about them losing that game. I just knew defensively he'd get stuck in. I just knew offensively he'd get them marching up the field. No concerns at all. The amount of offloads was ridiculous. You'd see him carry the ball, drag multiple defenders, get so many post-contact meters, and then it's either an offload or a quick play the ball. Again, 13 offloads or play the ball speed of 2.93 seconds. Unbelievable. So dominant. And there's a lot of big forwards that he played against, but he looked incredible. So my international lock / loose forward of the year is Joseph Tarpany. So to recap my international team of the season, at fullback I have Reece Walsh, on the wing I have Murray Talangi, at centre I have Matthew Timoko and Dean Mariner, on the left wing I have Casey McLean. In the halves I've got Dylan Brown and Jerome Luai. The front row is Naufahu White, Harry Grant and Erin Clark. The back row is Reece Martin and Angus Crichton, and at lock I have Joseph Tarpany. The bench is Edwin Apape, Payne Haas, Adam Fanua-Blake, and the guy that I didn't mention earlier is 18-year-old Cooper Bai. I compared him to everybody else, all the Aussie, English, Tongan, Samoan and New Zealand forwards. I put him in those comparisons as well. It was Naufahu White ranked number 1, Erin Clark 2, Payne Haas 3, Fanua-Blake 4, Cooper Bai was 5. Amongst all those props, he was number 5. Placed beautifully in each sort of area to get a really nice average rank. Like 4th for meters per carry, 5th for play the ball speed, just really solid ranks all around, and makes my international team of the season. But my international player of the year is Dylan Brown. So the final thing to get onto, top 5 international rugby league tries of 2025. Now last year I had a short list of like 25 tries because there were a lot of great tries. Unfortunately this year the caliber's not been at the same level. The top 5 for this one is not at the same level as last year, so some quality, cracking tries last year. But I found 5 that I think are good enough for a top 5, at least in my opinion anyway. So here you have my top 5 tries of the international campaign. So there you have it, folks. That is my 2025 International Rugby League review. As always, if you guys have your own opinions, let me know in the comment section down below. What are your power rankings? Who's your honourable mentions? Your top 3 in each position? What's your team of the season? Favourite tries of the year? Not just best, but favourite ones? Favourite moments? Let me know your thoughts or opinions. Anything you want to say about the Pacific Championships or the Ashes, let me know in the comment section down below. But if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Kinetic Rugby League content. And if you'd like to become a member, you can do by clicking the link in the description down below. And that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.